The church bells rang out, a melody of joy that felt like a lie to Emily's heart. She stood frozen in her wedding dress, the lace clinging to her skin like a second layer of doubt. Her golden retriever, Scout, sat squarely in her path, his soft brown eyes locked on hers, refusing to budge. Emily's hands trembled as she adjusted her veil, the weight of the moment pressing down harder than the bouquet in her grip. Around her, the garden buzzed with the chatter of guests, their laughter a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. Today was supposed to be her happily ever after, the day she'd marry James, the man everyone adored, everyone but Scout. "Scout, move," she whispered, her voice cracking. But the dog only tilted his head, his paws rooted to the grass. Emily's best friend, Mia, stood a few feet away, her flannel shirt untucked, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders. Mia's eyes, usually so steady, flickered with something unspoken, something that made Emily's chest ache. This wasn't just a wedding day. It was the day Emily's carefully constructed world began to unravel, thread by thread, starting with the dog who knew her better than she knew herself. Emily had always been the good girl. Growing up in a small Ohio town, she followed the rules, straight A's, church on Sundays, and a smile that hid every crack in her heart. By 25, she'd built a life that looked perfect on paper: a teaching job, a charming fiancé, and a house with a picket fence. James was everything her parents dreamed of: kind, stable, a lawyer with a bright future. But perfection, Emily was learning, could feel like a cage. Scout had been with her since college, a gift from Mia during their sophomore year. Back then, Emily and Mia were inseparable, sharing late-night talks in their dorm, dreaming of futures that didn't include fiancés or picket fences. Mia was bold where Emily was cautious, her laughter filling the gaps in Emily's quiet world. They'd spend hours by the lake, Scout bounding between them, chasing fireflies as they shared secrets under the stars. But life had a way of pulling people apart. After graduation, Mia moved to Chicago, chasing a career in graphic design, while Emily stayed in Ohio, settling into the life everyone expected. Their calls grew less frequent, their visits rare. When James proposed, Emily said yes, because it was what you did when a good man asked. Yet, every time she looked at Scout, she saw Mia's grin, her reckless heart, and a life she'd left behind. Now, standing in the garden, Emily felt the weight of that choice. Scout's refusal to move wasn't just stubbornness, it was a warning. She glanced at Mia, who was watching her with an intensity that made her stomach flip. Mia said softly, stepping closer, "You don't have to do this." Emily's breath hitched. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. She wanted to laugh it off, to tell Mia she was being ridiculous, but something in her friend's voice, a quiet, desperate edge, stopped her. The guests were starting to notice, their murmurs growing louder. James was waiting at the altar, oblivious to the chaos unfolding in Emily's heart. "Scout, please." Emily tried again, but the dog only whined, his tail still. Mia knelt beside him, her hand brushing his fur, and for a moment, Emily saw them as they were years ago: two girls and a dog, free from the world's expectations. The memory hit her like a wave, and with it came a truth she'd buried deep. She wasn't in love with James. She was in love with Mia. The realization crashed over her, stealing her breath. She'd spent years convincing herself that her feelings for Mia were just friendship, just admiration. But now, with Scout's eyes boring into her and Mia's hand so close to her own, the truth was undeniable. Her heart pounded, torn between the life she'd built and the one she'd never dared to want. "Mia," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. "What am I doing?" Mia's eyes softened, but before she could answer, Emily's mother appeared, her face a mix of concern and impatience. "Emily, sweetheart, everyone's waiting. Let's go." Emily looked from her mother to Mia, then down at Scout, who still hadn't moved. The dog's loyalty, his quiet insistence, was like a mirror reflecting her own heart. She couldn't ignore it anymore. But what did it mean to walk away from a wedding, from a life everyone else had planned for her? The thought was terrifying, exhilarating, impossible. As her mother tugged at her arm, Emily's gaze locked with Mia's. In that moment, she knew, whatever came next, it started with the truth. And the truth was standing right in front of her, wearing a flannel shirt and a look that said, "I'm here." The garden seemed to hold its breath as Emily took a step toward Mia. Scout finally moved, his tail wagging faintly, as if he'd done his job. The murmurs of the guests faded into a dull hum. And for the first time that day, Emily felt like she could breathe. "Mia," she said again, louder this time. "I need to talk to you. Alone." Her mother's grip tightened. "Emily, this isn't the time. It's the only time." Emily cut in, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. She turned to Mia, her heart racing. "Please." Mia nodded, her eyes never leaving Emily's. Together, they slipped away from the crowd, Scout trotting at their heels. They found a quiet corner of the garden, hidden by a row of blooming roses. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and the weight of unspoken words. "I've been lying to myself," Emily began, her voice trembling. "About James. About us." She gestured between them, her hands shaking. "I thought I could do this, marry him. Be the person everyone wants me to be. But I can't. Not when I look at you and feel everything." Mia's breath caught, her eyes glistening. I've loved you since the day we met. But I never wanted to push you. I thought you were happy." "I thought I was too," Emily admitted. But Scout, he knew. He's always known. They both looked down at the dog, who sat quietly, watching them. Emily laughed through her tears, the sound raw and real. "He's smarter than me." Mia reached for her hand, her touch warm and grounding. "You're not alone in this," she said. "Whatever you decide, I'm here." Emily squeezed her hand, the simple act feeling like a lifeline. She didn't have all the answers, not about James, not about her family, not about the future. But for the first time, she knew what she wanted. And it wasn't waiting at the altar. As they stood there, hand in hand, the church bells rang again, a reminder of the life Emily was about to leave behind. But with Mia beside her and Scout at her feet, she felt something she hadn't in years: hope. The roses seemed to lean in, shielding Emily and Mia from the world as they stood in the garden's quiet corner. Scout lay at their feet, his steady presence a reminder that some truths couldn't be ignored. Emily's heart pounded, her wedding dress suddenly feeling like a costume for a role she couldn't play. "I can't go back there," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced toward the church, where the guests were likely growing restless. "But I don't know how to do this, how to tell James. My parents. Everyone." Mia's hand tightened around hers. "You don't have to do it alone," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But you have to decide what you want. Not what they want." Emily nodded, her throat tight. She'd spent so long pleasing others, her parents, her friends, her small-town community, that she'd forgotten how to listen to herself. But now, with Mia's hand in hers and Scout's quiet loyalty grounding her, she felt a spark of courage. It was small, fragile, but it was there. They stayed there for what felt like hours, though only minutes passed. Emily's mind raced, replaying the years she'd spent burying her feelings for Mia. There was the summer they'd spent backpacking through Michigan, laughing under starlit skies. The way Mia's hand had brushed hers during a late-night movie marathon, sending her heart into a frenzy she'd dismissed as nerves. Every memory was a thread, weaving a truth she couldn't deny. Mia was her home. But home wasn't simple. Not when it meant appending her life, facing her family's disappointment, and confronting a world that might not understand. Emily's parents were traditional, their love for her bound up in expectations of a normal life. James was kind, dependable, the kind of man who deserved better than a bride who didn't love him. "I need to talk to James," Emily said finally, her voice steadier now. "He deserves the truth." Mia's eyes searched hers, a mix of pride and worry. "Are you sure?" "No," Emily admitted, a small smile breaking through her tears. "But I'm sure I can't lie to him. Not anymore." They walked back toward the church, Scout trotting beside them. The guests had started to spill out onto the lawn, their faces a mix of confusion and concern. Emily's mother was the first to spot her, her expression tightening as she took in Mia's presence and Scout's unwavering loyalty. "Emily, what's going on?" her mother demanded, her voice sharp. "James is waiting. Everyone is." "I know," Emily said, forcing herself to meet her mother's gaze. I need a moment with James. Alone." Her mother's eyes narrowed, but she stepped aside, gesturing toward the church. Emily squeezed Mia's hand one last time before letting go, her heart aching at the separation. Scout followed her, his presence a quiet reassurance as she stepped into the cool, shadowed interior of the church. James was at the altar, adjusting his tie, his face lighting up when he saw her. There you are," he said, his voice warm. "I was starting to think you'd run off." The words hit harder than he could have known. Emily forced a smile, her stomach twisting. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" His brow furrowed, but he nodded, leading her to a small room off the sanctuary. Scout sat outside the door, his eyes watchful, as if guarding her heart. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and old hymnals. Emily closed the door, her hand shaking. "James," she began, her voice trembling. "You're a good man. Better than I deserve. But I can't marry you." His face fell, confusion giving way to hurt. "What? Emily, what's wrong? Did I do something?" "No," she said quickly, tears welling up. "It's not you. It's me. I've been lying to myself, to you, about what I want, about who I am." James stared at her, his jaw tight. "Who you are?" he repeated, his voice low. "What does that mean?" Emily took a deep breath, the words she'd never said aloud clawing their way out. "I'm in love with someone else," she said. "With Mia?" The silence that followed was deafening. James's face went pale, his hands clenching at his sides. "Mia?" he said, his voice barely audible. "Your friend Mia?" Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't know not really until today. I thought I could be the person everyone wanted me to be. But I can't. I'm so sorry, James." He looked away, his shoulders slumping. "I thought we were happy," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought you loved me." "I do care about you," Emily said, her voice raw. "But not the way you deserve. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart. And I can't." James didn't speak for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the floor. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet but steady. "I need time," he said. "But I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me." The weight of his words settled over her, a mix of relief and guilt. She wanted to hug him, to take away the pain she'd caused, but she knew it wouldn't help. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you," and slipped out of the room. Scout at her heels. Outside, Mia was waiting, her expression anxious. When she saw Emily's tear-streaked face, she stepped forward, her arms open. Emily fell into them, sobbing, as Scout pressed against her legs. For the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. But the hardest part was still ahead. Her parents, her friends, the entire town feed all have questions, judgments, expectations. As Emily held on to Mia, she knew the road ahead would be messy, painful, and uncertain. But with Mia's arms around her and Scout's quiet strength beside her, she felt ready to face it. The church lawn was a sea of curious faces as Emily and Mia emerged, hand in hand. Scout trotted beside them, his presence a quiet anchor in the chaos. Emily's heart raced, her wedding dress now feeling like a relic of a life she'd left behind in that small room with James. Her mother was the first to approach, her face a mask of disapproval. "Emily, what is this?" she demanded, her eyes darting to Mia's hand in hers. "You're making a scene." Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. "Mom, I called off the wedding," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I can't marry James." The words hung in the air, drawing gasps from the crowd. Emily's father joined them, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean? You can't. This is your future, Emily. James is your future." "No, Dad," Emily said, her voice growing stronger. "He's not. I've been trying to fit into the life you wanted for me, but it's not who I am." Her mother's eyes narrowed, her voice low. "And who are you, then? Running off with your friend?" The word friend dripped with judgment, and Emily felt Mia tense beside her. "I love her," Emily said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I love Mia. I always have." The crowd fell silent, the weight of her confession settling over them like a storm cloud. Her mother's face went pale, her father's jaw clenched. Emily braced herself for their anger, their disappointment. But what came was worse, silence. Her mother turned and walked away, her father following, leaving Emily standing there, exposed and raw. Mia squeezed her hand, her voice soft. "You did it," she whispered. "You said the truth." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But it hurts," she admitted. "They're my family." "I know," Mia said, pulling her close. "But you're not alone. You have me. And Scout." The dog pressed against Emily's legs, his warmth a reminder of the love that had brought her to this moment. She looked around at the guests, some whispering, some staring, a few offering small, tentative smiles. Her best friend from high school, Sarah, stepped forward, her eyes kind. "I'm proud of you, Em," she said. "This took guts." The words were a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone would turn away. But as Emily scanned the crowd, she saw the judgment in some faces, the confusion in others. This was her town, her home, but it didn't feel like hers anymore. Not yet, at least. "Let's get out of here," Mia said, her voice gentle but firm. "Just for a little while." Emily nodded, too overwhelmed to argue. They slipped away from the crowd, Scout leading the way to Mia's old pickup truck parked at the edge of the lot. Emily climbed in, still in her wedding dress, the lace catching on the worn leather seat. Scout hopped into the back, his tail wagging as if he knew they were headed somewhere better. Mia drove them out of town, the familiar streets giving way to open fields and winding roads. The silence between them was comfortable, filled only with the hum of the engine and Scout's soft breathing. Emily leaned her head against the window, watching the world blur by, her mind racing with what she'd just done. I don't know what happens next, she admitted, her voice small. My parents. They might never understand. Mia reached for her hand, her touch steady. They might not, she said. But they love you. Give them time. Emily nodded, but the weight of her parents' silence lingered. She thought of the years she'd spent trying to please them, hiding the parts of herself that didn't fit their vision. Coming out to them now, in front of everyone, felt like both a betrayal and a liberation. They pulled up to a small lake, the same one they'd visited in college. The water shimmered under the late afternoon sun, and Emily felt a pang of nostalgia. This was where they'd made promises to each other, promises she'd forgotten until now. Mia turned off the engine, her eyes soft. You remember this place? She asked. How could I forget? Emily said, a small smile breaking through her tears. This is where you gave me Scout. Mia laughed, the sound warm and familiar. He was supposed to be our dog, you know, but you stole his heart. Emily looked back at Scout, who was watching them from the truck bed. His ears perked. He's the reason I'm here, she said. He knew before I did. They got out of the truck, walking to the water's edge. Scout bounded ahead, chasing a butterfly, his joy a stark contrast to the heaviness in Emily's heart. She kicked off her shoes, the grass cool against her feet, and sat beside Mia on the shore. I'm scared, Emily admitted, her voice barely audible. What if I lose them? My family, my friends, everything. Mia took her hand, her thumb brushing over Emily's knuckles. You might lose some things, she said honestly, but you're gaining yourself. And that's worth everything. Emily looked into Mia's eyes, seeing the love she'd tried so hard to ignore. For the first time, she let herself feel it full no guilt. No fear, just the truth. She leaned forward, her lips brushing Mia's in a kiss that felt like coming home. As they pulled apart, Scout barked, his tail wagging furiously. Emily laughed, the sound mingling with her tears. The road ahead was uncertain, but in that moment, with Mia's hand in hers and Scout at her side, she felt like she could face anything. The lake's surface rippled gently, reflecting the fading light as Emily and Mia sat side by side, their hands still intertwined. Scout lay nearby, chewing on a stick, his presence a quiet comfort. Emily's wedding dress was streaked with grass stains, but she didn't carry it felt like shedding a skin that had never fit. I keep thinking about my mom's face, Emily said, her voice low. The way she looked at me, like I'd broken something. Mia squeezed her hand. You didn't break anything, Em. You just chose yourself. That's not the same thing. Emily nodded, but the ache in her chest didn't ease. She'd always been close to her parents, their approval a cornerstone of her life. Coming out to them in front of the entire wedding party wasn't how she'd imagined it. She'd pictured a quiet conversation, maybe over coffee, with time to explain. Instead, she'd ripped the bandage off, leaving everyone raw. What if they never come around? Emily asked, her eyes fixed on the water. What if they can't accept Thysis? Mia was quiet for a moment, her gaze steady. Then you build a new family, she said. One that loves you for who you are. But I don't think it'll come to that. Your parents love you. They're just processing. Emily wanted to believe her, but the memory of her mother's silence was a heavy weight. She leaned her head on Mia's shoulder, drawing strength from her warmth. I wish I'd figured this out sooner, she said. Before I hurt James. Before I made everything so complicated. You figured it out when you were ready, Mia said. And you didn't hurt James on purpose. You were trying to do the right thing. Emily laughed softly, the sound bitter. The right thing. I don't even know what that is anymore. Mia turned to face her, her eyes fierce. The right thing is being honest. With James. With your family. With yourself. You did that today, Em. That's not nothing. Emily looked at her, the conviction in Mia's voice cutting through her doubt. She thought of Scout, who'd refused to let her walk down the aisle, and of the moment she'd admitted her love for Mia. It was terrifying, but it was also the most honest she'd ever been. They sat there as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky turning shades of pink and gold. Scout wandered over, dropping his stick at Emily's feet, his eyes bright. She scratched his ears, her heart swelling with gratitude for the dog who'd seen her truth before she had. Let's go back, Emily said finally, her voice steady. I need to face them. Mia nodded, standing and offering her hand. Together. Together, Emily agreed, taking her hand. Scout barked, as if in approval, and they headed back to the truck, the lake fading into the dusk behind them. The drive back to town was quiet, the weight of what lay ahead settling over them. When they pulled up to Emily's house, the lights were on, and her parents' car was in the driveway. Her stomach twisted, but she took a deep breath, steeling herself. Inside, her parents sat at the kitchen table, their faces drawn. Her mother's eyes were red, her father's hands clasped tightly together. They looked up as Emily entered, still in her wedding dress, Mia and Scout at her side. Emily, her father said, his voice heavy. We need to talk. She nodded, sitting across from them, Mia taking the seat beside her. Scout settled at her feet, his warmth grounding her. I'm sorry for how this happened, Emily began, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But I couldn't marry James. Not when I'm in love with Mia. Her mother's face crumpled, and for a moment, Emily thought she'd walk away again. But instead, she spoke, her voice raw. Why didn't you tell us? All these years, Emily, and you never said a word. I didn't know how, Emily admitted. I was scared. I thought if I followed the path, everyone wanted James. The wedding, the house, I'd be happy. But I wasn't. And Scout, he knew. He stopped me today because he knew. Her father's eyes softened as he looked at the dog. That dog always was too smart for his own good, he said, a faint smile breaking through. Mia spoke up, her voice steady. I know this is hard. I love Emily, and I want her to be happy. I hope you can see that. Her parents exchanged a glance, the silence stretching. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice softer now. We love you, Emily. We need time to understand. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a start. Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know, she said. And I'll wait. As they left the kitchen, Mia's hand found hers again, and Scout pressed close. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, Emily felt like she was walking it as herself. And that was enough for now. The days after the wedding were a blur of raw emotions and quiet moments. Emily stayed at Mia's small apartment in Chicago, a temporary refuge from the whispers of her hometown. Scout sprawled across the living room floor, his presence a constant reminder of the choice she'd made. Emily's phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, others curious, a few cruel. Old friends reached out, some offering love, others asking questions she wasn't ready to answer. She avoided social media, where the news of her canceled wedding had spread like wildfire. The weight of it all pressed down, but Mia's steady presence kept her grounded. You don't have to read those, Mia said one morning, catching Emily staring at her phone. They were sitting at the kitchen table, coffee mugs between them, Scout snoring softly nearby. People will talk. Let them. Emily nodded, setting the phone down. I just didn't expect it to feel like this, she said. Like I'm starting over from nothing. You're not starting from nothing, Mia said, reaching for her hand. You've got me. You've got Scout. And you've got yourself the real you. Emily smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. She thought of her parents, their hesitant words at the kitchen table. They hadn't called since, and the silence felt like a wound. She wanted to reach out, but fear held her back. What if they couldn't accept her? What if love wasn't enough? That afternoon, they took Scout for a walk in a nearby park, the Chicago skyline looming in the distance. The air was crisp, the leaves turning shades of red and gold. Emily watched as Scout chased a squirrel, his joy infectious. For a moment, she felt lighter, like the girl she'd been before life got complicated. Mia, she said, stopping on the path. What happens if my parents never come around? What if I lose them for good? Mia turned to her, her eyes soft but serious. You can't control what they do, she said. But you can control how you live. You chose honesty. Em. That's not something you'll ever regret. Emily nodded, her throat tight. She wanted to believe Mia, but the fear lingered, a shadow she couldn't shake. They walked on, their hands brushing, and Emily let herself feel the warmth of the moment, the simple joy of being with Mia. Back at the apartment, Emily found a letter tucked into her suitcase, one she hadn't noticed before. It was from James, his neat handwriting unmistakable. Her heart sank as she opened it, bracing herself for anger or blame. Instead, the words were kind, measured, and heartbreaking. Emily, I won't pretend I'm not hurt, but I want you to know I respect your choice. You deserve to be happy, and I hope you find that with Mia. Take care of Scoot's a good dog. James. Tears welled up as she read, guilt and gratitude warring inside her. She showed the letter to Mia, who read it silently, her expression softening. He's a good guy, Mia said. He'll be okay. I know, Emily said, her voice thick. But I still feel like I broke something. You didn't break him, Mia said. You set him free to find someone who can love him the way he deserves. Just like you're doing for yourself. Emily nodded, folding the letter carefully. She looked at Scout, who was watching her with those knowing eyes, and felt a surge of love for the dog who'd changed everything. He'd stopped her from walking down the aisle, but he'd also led her here, to this moment, to Mia. That night, Emily called her parents. Her hands shook as she dialed, but she couldn't keep running from the conversation. Her mother answered, her voice cautious. Emily. Hi, Mom, Emily said, her heart pounding. I wanted to check in, to see if we could talk. There was a long pause, and Emily braced herself for rejection. But then her mother spoke, her voice softer than before. We're still processing, sweetheart. But we love you. Can you come home this weekend? Just to talk. Emily's eyes filled with tears, relief washing over her. Yeah, she said. I'd like that. When she hung up, Mia was there, pulling her into a hug. Scout pressed against them, his tail wagging. For the first time in days, Emily felt a flicker of hope not just for herself, but for the family she might still have. As they settled into bed that night, Emily's head on Mia's chest, she thought of the journey ahead. It wouldn't be easy, but it was hers. And with Mia and Scout by her side, she was ready to face it. The weekend arrived too quickly, and Emily found herself back in her hometown. The familiar streets both comforting and daunting. She and Mia drove together. Scout sprawled across the back seat, his presence a quiet reassurance. Emily's stomach churned as they pulled into her parents' driveway, the house looking smaller than she remembered. Her mother opened the door before they could knock, her face a mix of nervousness and determination. "Come in," she said, her voice softer than Emily expected. Her father was in the living room, standing awkwardly, as if unsure how to greet them. "Thanks for having us," Emily said, her voice unsteady. Mia stood beside her, her hand brushing Emily's for courage. Scout sat at their feet, his eyes flicking between them, as if sensing the tension. They sat at the dining table, the same one where Emily had eaten countless family dinners. The silence was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, her father spoke, his voice gruff. "We've been talking, Emily, about what happened. About you and Mia." Emily's heart raced, but she nodded, forcing herself to stay calm. "I know it's a lot," she said. "I didn't mean for it to come out like that at the wedding, but I couldn't keep pretending." Her mother's eyes were wet, her hands clasped tightly. "We raised you to be honest," she said. "But it's hard for us. We didn't see it coming." "I know," Emily said, her voice breaking. "I didn't either. Not for a long time. But Mia, she's my truth. And I can't change that, even if it's hard." Mia spoke up, her voice steady but gentle. "I love Emily," she said. "I want her to be happy, and I want her to have her family. I hope we can find a way to make that work." Her parents exchanged a glance, and Emily braced herself for rejection. But her father surprised her, his voice softening. "We don't understand everything," he said. "But we don't want to lose you. Emily, you're our daughter." Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks, and she reached for Mia's hand under the table. "I don't want to lose you either," she said. "I just need you to see Miralai see me." Her mother reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched Emily's. "We're trying," she said. "It's going to take time, but we're trying." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. They talked for hours, the conversation raw and halting, but honest. Emily told them about her years of hiding, her fear of disappointing them. Her parents admitted their own fears, their struggle to reconcile their beliefs with their love for her. Mia listened, offering quiet support, while Scout lay at their feet, his presence a bridge between them. By the time they left, Emily felt lighter, though the road ahead was still uncertain. Her parents hugged her, their embraces tentative but real. As she and Mia drove back to Chicago, Scout's head resting on her lap, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Her family wasn't whole yet, but it wasn't broken either. Back at Mia's apartment, they settled into a new routine. Emily started looking for teaching jobs in Chicago, determined to build a life that was hers. She and Mia spent evenings cooking together, laughing over burnt dinners. Scout always nearby, begging for scraps. It was simple, messy, and perfect. One night, as they sat on the couch, Mia turned to her, her eyes serious. "I want this forever," she said. "You, me, Scout. Whatever comes." Emily's heart swelled, the weight of her fears lifting. "Me too," she said, leaning in to kiss her. Scout barked, as if sealing the promise, and they laughed, the sound filling the small apartment. The future was still uncertain. Her parents' acceptance was fragile, and the world beyond their door wasn't always kind. But Emily was learning to trust herself, to believe in the life she was building. With Mia's love and Scout's loyalty, she felt ready for whatever came next. Months passed, and Emily's life in Chicago began to take shape. She landed a teaching job at a local elementary school, her days filled with the chatter of children and the satisfaction of building something new. Mia's graphic design work kept her busy, but they carved out time for each other, their evenings filled with walks with Scout and quiet moments that felt like home. Emily's relationship with her parents was still a work in progress, They called regularly, their conversations cautious but warm. Her mother sent a care package one day, homemade cookies and a photo of Emily as a child, riding her bike with Scout trotting beside her. The note inside read, "We're proud of you." It was small, but it meant everything. The town had stopped whispering about the wedding, though Emily still felt eyes on her when she visited. Some friends had drifted away, unable to understand her choice. But others, like Sarah, stayed close, their support unwavering. Emily was learning to let go of the need for everyone's approval, focusing instead on the people who loved her for who she was. One spring afternoon, Emily and Mia took Scout to the lake, the place where their story had begun. The air was warm, the water sparkling under the sun. They spread a blanket on the shore, Scout chasing waves as they laughed. Emily looked at Mia, her heart full. "I was thinking," Emily said, her voice soft. "Maybe we could make this official. You and me." Mia's eyes widened, a smile spreading across her face. "Are you proposing, Emily Carter?" Emily laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Maybe I am," she said. "I don't have a ring yet, but I have you. And Scout. That's enough." Mia pulled her close, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like a promise. "Yes," she whispered. 8,000 times. "Yes." Scout barked, bounding over to them, his tail wagging furiously. They laughed, pulling him into their embrace. The three of them a family forged by love and courage. Emily thought of the wedding day that had changed everything, of Scout's stubborn refusal to let her walk down the aisle. He'd known her heart, even when she didn't. That evening, they called Emily's parents, sharing the news. Her mother's voice was hesitant but warm. "We want to be there," she said. "For you. For both of you." It was more than Emily had dared to hope for. She hung up, tears in her eyes, and turned to Mia. "They're trying," she said. "They really are." "They'll get there," Mia said, her hand finding Emily's. "And we'll be here, living our truth." As they sat together, Scout curled up at their feet, Emily felt a peace she'd never known. The world wasn't perfect, and neither was their story. But it was theirs, built on honesty and love. And that was enough. A year later, Emily and Mia stood in the same garden where everything had changed. It wasn't a wedding, not yet just a celebration of their engagement, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Scout wore a bandana around his neck, his tail wagging as he greeted guests. Emily's parents were there, their smiles tentative but genuine, a testament to the slow, steady work of rebuilding. Sarah had helped plan the day, her laughter filling the garden as she teased Emily about her new beginning. James sent a card, his words kind and sincere, wishing them happiness. Emily kept it on her dresser, a reminder of the grace he'd shown her. As the sun set, Emily and Mia stood hand in hand, Scout at their feet. The garden was alive with fairy lights and the scent of roses, the same roses that had witnessed Emily's truth a year ago. She looked at Mia, her heart full, and thought of the journey that had brought them here. "Thank you," Emily whispered, her eyes on Mia, "for waiting for me." Mia smiled, her thumb brushing over Emily's knuckles. "You were worth the wait." Scout barked, as if in agreement, and the crowd laughed, raising their glasses. Emily's mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening. "To love," she said, her voice steady. "And to family." The toast echoed through the garden, a promise of healing and hope. Emily leaned into Mia, Scout pressing close, and felt the weight of her old life lift completely. She was no longer the girl who'd hidden her heart. She was Emily loved, whole, and free. As the stars came out, Emily looked at Scout, the dog who'd known her truth before she did. She scratched his ears, whispering, "You did good, buddy." He licked her hand, his eyes bright, and Emily knew this was the life she was meant to live. The road hadn't been easy, but it had led her here to Mia, to herself, to a future built on love. And as she stood in the garden, surrounded by the people who'd chosen to stay, Emily felt something she hadn't dared to dream of on her wedding day: peace.